Hello, America. JOC here with your Ranting Politics headline updates. And today we have a special edition weekend super show where we are diving into today's and this week's most explosive political stories that you need to know about. Coming up, we're talking international intrigue with Ukrainian forces capturing Chinese nationals fighting for Russia. Yeah, that's happening. Plus, Trump's market-moving social media posts that sent Wall Street into a frenzy and recovered trillions in value. We've also got the inside scoop on the House narrowly passing Trump's budget blueprint after some serious conservative pushback, North Korea flat out rejecting denuclearization as a daydream, and former NBC host Chuck Todd finally admitting what we all knew about media coverage of Biden's decline. From leadership shakeups at the ATF to controversial moves by the IRS sharing taxpayer data with immigration authorities, we're covering it all with the no-nonsense, straight-talking approach you expect from Ranting Politics. We'll even dive into Meta's alleged censorship collaboration with China, Taliban morality police cracking down on haircuts, tennis legend Martina Navratilova challenging Democrats, and Trump's latest executive order to literally make America's showers great again. Stick around for all this and more in your daily dose of unfiltered news and common sense commentary. This is Ranting Politics Headline Updates. In breaking news that could dramatically escalate tensions between the West and China, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky dropped a bombshell announcement Tuesday that his forces have captured 2 Chinese nationals fighting alongside Russian troops in eastern Ukraine's Donetsk region. This isn't just some minor diplomatic hiccup, folks. This is potentially explosive. Zelensky claims Ukrainian forces recovered their documents, bank cards, and personal data, proving their identities. And here's the kicker. He suggests this might just be the tip of the iceberg, stating, "We have information that there are many more Chinese citizens in the occupiers' units than just 2. The Ukrainian president didn't mince words about what this could mean. He's instructed his foreign minister to contact Beijing immediately, demanding explanations, while simultaneously calling on Ukraine's Western allies to protest these developments. Russia's involvement of China in this war in Europe, directly or indirectly, is a clear signal that Putin is going to do anything except end the war," Zelensky declared. He is looking for ways to continue fighting. Now let's be clear about something. We don't yet know if these captured Chinese nationals are actual Chinese military personnel or private volunteers. Western officials told CNN they haven't seen evidence of state sponsorship in these cases. But regardless, the optics are terrible for Beijing. This development comes against the backdrop of reports that China has been quietly helping Russia beef up its defense industrial base with machine tools, drone engines, and microelectronics essential for weapons manufacturing. Add in Russia's strengthened military relationship with North Korea, who've already sent troops to Ukraine, and you've got yourself a concerning pattern. Meanwhile, the situation on the ground remains brutal. Russian attacks killed at least 3 people and injured 19 others across multiple Ukrainian regions in just the last 24 hours. And Russia claims it's recaptured one of the last Ukrainian-held villages in the Kursk region, where Ukraine launched its surprising cross-border incursion last August. Ukrainian forces have also begun limited attacks in Russia's northwestern Belgorod region, with Zelensky confirming for the first time Monday that his troops are active there to protect Ukrainian border towns. The 225th Separate Assault Regiment released videos showing their forces destroying 2 bridges in the Belgorod region, confirming their presence on Russian soil. This Chinese connection, if substantiated, raises the troubling prospect that Putin's war is becoming an even broader international conflict with major powers indirectly involved. It's a dangerous escalation that bears watching closely. We'll talk about perfect timing or suspicious coincidence depending on how you look at it. Former President Donald Trump caused quite a stir last week with what some are calling a market-moving social media blitz that has Wall Street and ethics watchdogs raising eyebrows. At 9:37 a.m. Wednesday morning, with markets wavering between gains and losses, Trump posted this message on his Truth Social platform. "This is a great time to buy, DJT." Just a simple statement followed by his initials. Nothing too unusual for the typically outspoken former president, right? Wrong. Less than 4 hours later, Trump made a stunning announcement that he was implementing a 90-day pause on nearly all his recently imposed tariffs. The market reaction was immediate and explosive. The S&P 500 soared 9.5% by the end of trading, recovering about $4 trillion in value, approximately 70% of what had been lost during the previous 4 trading days. Now, anyone who followed Trump's financial advice that morning made a killing. And that's precisely what has Democratic senators like Adam Schiff and Chris Murphy crying foul. Did anyone buy or sell stocks and profit at the public's expense? Schiff asked on social media. Murphy went even further, stating, "An insider trading scandal is brewing." The timing raises an obvious question. Was Trump already planning the tariff pause when he posted his stock buying tip? When directly asked about when he made the decision, Trump's answer only muddied the waters. "Over the last few days, I've been thinking about it," he said, but then added, "fairly early this morning." The White House, for its part, defended the post as part of Trump's presidential duties, with spokesperson Kush Desai stating, "It is the responsibility of the President of the United States to reassure the markets and Americans about their economic security in the face of nonstop media fearmongering." But here's where things get even more interesting. Trump signed his post with DJT, which happens to also be the stock ticker symbol for Trump Media and Technology Group, the parent company of Truth Social. Was he suggesting people buy stocks generally, or specifically his company's shares? Either way, Trump Media's stock price rocketed up 22.67% that day, more than twice the broader market's gains. That's pretty remarkable for a company that lost $400 million last year and seems completely unaffected by tariff policies. Trump's 53% ownership stake in the company, now held in a trust controlled by Donald Trump Jr., increased in value by a cool $415 million in a single day. Tesla also experienced a similar windfall, with Elon Musk's fortune increasing by about $20 billion. Just last month, Trump held a news conference praising Tesla and its cars, followed by his Commerce Secretary encouraging Fox viewers to buy the stock. Kathleen Clark, a government ethics law expert at Washington University, summed it up this way. He's sending the message that he can effectively and with impunity manipulate the market, as in, watch this space for future stock tips. Whether this constitutes actual illegal insider trading remains to be seen. But one thing's certain, Trump's market-moving powers appear as strong as ever, and he seems more than willing to use them. The House of Representatives has finally approved a compromise budget resolution after a nail-biting vote that came down to the wire. The measure squeaked through with a 216-214 margin, with just 2 Republicans, Representatives Thomas Massey of Kentucky and Victoria Spartz of Indiana, voting against it. This crucial step allows Republicans to begin drafting President Trump's self-described big, beautiful agenda package. The budget resolution has been a contentious battleground, particularly for fiscal hawks in the House who had been holding out for deeper spending cuts. Their main demand? Mandatory reductions of at least $1.5 trillion, far more than the few billion dollars in cuts proposed by the Senate version. Speaker Mike Johnson, clearly relieved after securing the votes, told reporters, "It was a good day in the House. I told you not to doubt us. We get the job done." He added, "There's a lot of work ahead of us, and we're really excited about that." With this hurdle cleared, Republican lawmakers can now use a legislative process known as budget reconciliation to advance President Trump's priorities. This procedural maneuver is critical because it allows legislation to pass the Senate with a simple majority, bypassing the 60-vote threshold typically needed to overcome a Democratic filibuster. The reconciliation package could raise the nation's debt ceiling by as much as $5 trillion, extend Trump's tax cuts, and add hundreds of billions in defense and border security spending. House Freedom Caucus Chairman Andy Harris, who had previously been on the fence, ultimately supported the measure, but with clear conditions. After meeting with President Trump at the White House, I am assured that he will not sign a bill that does not produce the spending reforms necessary to put our country back on the path toward balancing the federal budget, Harris said, adding that spending cuts must approach $2 trillion in the final bill to win his vote. Several key differences remain between the House and Senate versions. The Senate blueprint makes room for Trump's campaign pledges of no tax on tips, Social Security, or overtime pay, plus an increased state and local tax deduction, with a price tag of about $5.3 trillion. The House version allocates only $4.5 trillion for tax cuts. On border security, the Senate instructs $350 billion in new funding, while the House calls for $200 billion. Defense spending also differs, with the Senate boosting it by $150 billion compared to the House's $100 billion increase. Even the debt ceiling hike varies, with the Senate proposing $5 trillion versus the House's $4 trillion. Despite these differences, President Trump celebrated the vote, posting on Truth Social. Congratulations to the House on the passage of a bill that sets the stage for one of the greatest and most important signings in the history of our country. GOP leaders are optimistic they can reconcile these differences and get a final bill to Trump's desk by Memorial Day. With Congress breaking for a 2-week Passover and Easter recess, the real work of hammering out the details begins when they return. Stay with us as we take a quick break to hear from our lead sponsor, whose support helps make this show possible.
I'm Imogen Folks, the host of Inside Geneva, a podcast where we tackle the big questions facing our planet. Can UN investigations bring more criminals to justice? Does the world need a pandemic treaty? What about climate change or refugees? Should we ban autonomous weapons? Some call them killer robots. Get the answers you need with me and our expert guests twice a month on Inside Geneva, free with your usual podcast app.
Hey, you brilliant inventors and creators. Have you crafted a product that's ready to break out from the digital world and hit the physical shelves? Imagine your creation sitting proudly in stores like Walmart, Target, and Home Depot, where 90% of purchases still happen. Well, it's time to turn that vision into reality with Product Fury. At Product Fury, we specialize in bridging the gap between online innovation and retail giants. In fact, we have secured millions of dollars of royalty deals for dozens of products at big box retail stores. Whether you're selling gadgets, home goods, or anything innovative, we're here to amplify your reach. Don't keep your product confined to the web. Visit www.productfury.ai today to submit your information for a free product evaluation. Let's get your products out of the internet cloud and into customer carts. Remember, that's productfury.ai. Make the leap from clicks to bricks and see your product thrive in the bustling aisles of major retailers. It's your time to shine on the big stage. Visit us now.
The war of words over North Korea's nuclear program has intensified this week, with Kim Yo-jong, the powerful sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, forcefully rejecting any notion that the Hermit Kingdom would give up its nuclear arsenal. In a statement dripping with defiance, Kim Yo-jong mocked Washington and its Asian allies for what she called their daydream of denuclearizing North Korea. She pointedly reminded the world that the country's nuclear ambitions are now enshrined in its constitution, making any external discussions of denuclearization the most hostile act and equivalent to denying North Korea's sovereignty. If the U.S. and its vassal forces continue to insist on anachronistic denuclearization, she warned, it will only give unlimited justness and justification to the DPRK aspiring after the building of the strongest nuclear force for self-defense. Her message was crystal clear. North Korea's nuclear status can never be reversed by any physical strength or sly artifice. This hardline stance comes as tensions in the region continue to escalate. Kim Jong-un has been increasingly flaunting his military nuclear capabilities while simultaneously strengthening ties with Russia over President Vladimir Putin's war in Ukraine. Despite President Trump's stated intention to reach out to Kim again to revive the diplomacy they began during his first term, North Korea has remained conspicuously silent on the offer. Those earlier talks collapsed when the two sides couldn't agree on ending U.S.-led sanctions in exchange for North Korea taking steps to wind down its nuclear and missile programs. The geopolitical landscape has shifted dramatically since then. Kim's foreign policy priority is now clearly Russia, which he has supplied with both weapons and troops to support Putin's war effort in Ukraine. This alarming development has Seoul deeply concerned that Kim may receive economic assistance and advanced technology to develop his arsenal in exchange for North Korea's military support. The timing of Kim Yo-jong's statement is particularly troubling, coming just a day after South Korea fired warning shots to repel North Korean soldiers who had crossed the border. According to South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, about 10 North Korean soldiers, some armed, violated the military demarcation line in the eastern section of the border before retreating after warning shots were fired. With North Korea doubling down on its nuclear ambitions and forging closer ties with Russia, the prospects for diplomatic breakthroughs appear increasingly remote. The question now becomes how the United States and its allies will respond to this hardening stance, and whether alternative approaches to regional security can be developed in the absence of denuclearization. In a region already fraught with tension, North Korea's unambiguous rejection of denuclearization talks represents yet another challenge to stability in Northeast Asia, with potential ripple effects across the global security landscape. In a stunning admission that's sending shockwaves through media circles, former NBC host Chuck Todd has finally acknowledged what many Americans suspected throughout the 2024 presidential campaign. The mainstream media deliberately held back on covering President Biden's cognitive decline out of fear it would benefit Donald Trump. Speaking with Piers Morgan on Piers Morgan Uncensored, Todd initially tried to defend the media's approach, suggesting they had been subtle about Biden's deteriorating condition. Look, we were subtle. He's using the back staircase. He's not using the front staircase. Hey, he's not doing any interviews, Todd explained, implying reporters had hinted at the issue without directly addressing it. But then came the bombshell admission. There was this reluctance to draw the conclusion. That was held back a lot by the mainstream media. When pressed on why, Todd confessed, "The only thing I can chalk it up to is this, whatever you want to call it, this fear that some members of the media had sometimes that they would be perceived as helping Trump if they somehow diminished Biden." This revelation comes on the heels of two explosive new books that detail how Democratic leaders, including former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, were privately alarmed about Biden's mental acuity while publicly dismissing such concerns. According to Chris Whipple's book, Uncharted, How Trump Beat Biden, Harris, and the Odds in the Wildest Campaign in History, Pelosi told a friend she was startled by Biden's appearance after a White House meeting in May 2024. "He was not the same Joe Biden," Pelosi reportedly said, adding that she couldn't shake the realization that Joe Biden was a shadow of himself. Yet just 1 month later, Pelosi took to social media to bash a Wall Street Journal article as a hit piece for reporting claims that mirrored what she herself had privately observed. The implications of this double standard are profound for media credibility. If news organizations are making editorial decisions based on preferred electoral outcomes rather than journalistic integrity, what other stories are being shaped by political considerations? Todd himself acknowledged this pattern has been the fundamental mistake that many members of the traditional press have done. He cited the post-January 6th effort to deplatform Trump from social media as another example where media overreach ultimately backfired. "It looks more obvious today," Todd admitted. "Because what did he do? He built his own information ecosystem, and now traditional media is doing what? Showing up on YouTube." Traditional media, Todd argued, doesn't have the influence it did anymore because it went along with this deplatforming exercise. The fallout from these revelations will likely further erode public trust in mainstream news outlets at a time when media credibility is already at historic lows. The question now becomes whether newsrooms will learn from this misstep or continue down the path of partisan gatekeeping that increasingly alienates large portions of the American public. Another significant shakeup is underway in federal law enforcement, as FBI Director Kash Patel has been removed from his dual role as acting director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Army Secretary Daniel Driscoll has quietly taken over the position, according to multiple U.S. officials who confirmed the leadership change to Reuters yesterday. What's particularly unusual about this situation is that the Justice Department never publicly announced the transition. In fact, as of Wednesday afternoon, Patel's photo and title of acting director were still prominently displayed on the ATF's website. This silent shuffle raises questions about transparency within the department during the early months of Trump's second term. Patel had been serving as acting ATF leader since February 24th, just 3 days after being sworn in as FBI director. an unprecedented arrangement where one person simultaneously led two major Justice Department agencies. A Justice Department official has insisted the removal had nothing to do with Patel's job performance, though they declined to explain the actual reasoning behind the decision. The timing of this leadership change is particularly interesting as it comes amid reports that senior Justice Department officials are considering merging the ATF with the Drug Enforcement Administration as part of a broader cost-cutting initiative. Additionally, Attorney General Pam Bondi has recently launched a task force focused on enforcing the Second Amendment, with the ATF set to play a key role alongside other Justice Department divisions. Just this Monday, the ATF formally repealed its zero-tolerance policy, which had called for revoking the licenses of gun dealers who committed serious violations like failing to conduct background checks. The press release announcing this policy reversal still included a quote from Patel as acting director, suggesting the leadership change happened very recently. The National Shooting Sports Foundation, the firearms industry's leading trade association, welcomed Driscoll's appointment, stating it's indicative of his resolve to bring reform to ATF and protect the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens. However, current and former ATF officials have expressed concern about the leadership vacuum at an agency tasked with investigating firearm, bomb, and arson-related crimes. Peter Forcelli, a former ATF assistant director, told Reuters, "To see them in the situation they're in now is just really heartbreaking. The fact they're getting kicked around like a soccer ball is to me just incredibly disrespectful." This ATF shakeup is just the latest in a series of whiplash policy reversals and personnel changes that have characterized the early months of Trump's second term, including the firing and rehiring of large numbers of federal workers, and yesterday's surprise temporary lowering of tariffs after steep new import taxes had just kicked in a day earlier. The question now becomes how these rapid leadership changes will affect the ATF's ability to perform its core mission of protecting public safety while navigating the administration's strong pro-Second Amendment stance. In a significant policy shift that could affect millions of immigrants, the IRS has struck a deal with federal immigration agents to share taxpayer information to help locate individuals in the U.S. illegally. According to court filings revealed this week, the agreement creates a framework to support President Trump's promised crackdown on undocumented immigration. The agreement, signed Monday by Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, allows Immigration and Customs Enforcement to obtain addresses and other details about individuals targeted for criminal investigations. Justice Department lawyers defending the policy stated plainly, DHS can legally request return information relating to individuals under criminal investigation, and the IRS must provide it. This is particularly significant because millions of immigrants without Social Security numbers use individual taxpayer identification numbers, or ITNs, to pay their taxes each year. The IRS has their names, addresses, and other personal information that could now potentially be shared with immigration authorities. Amid this controversial policy implementation, Acting IRS Commissioner Melanie Krause has resigned from her post, according to administration officials speaking on condition of anonymity. A Treasury Department spokesperson confirmed Krause is headed on to a new endeavor, but provided no further details about the timing or reasons for her departure. Immigrant advocacy groups have responded with alarm. Aaron Reichlin Melnick of the American Immigration Council warned the policy would likely have a chilling effect on working immigrants, while Thomas Kennedy of the Florida Immigrant Coalition predicted it would deter immigrants from paying taxes altogether, ultimately hurting all Americans. The potential economic impact is substantial. The American Immigration Council estimated that households of undocumented immigrants paid nearly $90 billion in taxes in 2023 alone, including about $56 billion in federal taxes. A federal report found there were over 5.8 million people with active ITINs at the end of 2022. This move has also drawn political pushback. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus sent a letter to Treasury Department officials Tuesday, urging them to uphold their clear legal mandate to protect taxpayer information and reject what they called the illegal use of ITIN data for immigration enforcement. The 23 congressional representatives, all Democrats, argued that the IRS has no legal authority to use its data for immigration enforcement and that doing so would violate federal law. In early March, 2 Chicago-area nonprofit organizations sued the Treasury Department to prevent this very scenario, arguing that providing such information would greatly facilitate DHS and ICE in identifying and locating millions of individuals who are potentially subject to removal and expose taxpayers to aggressive immigration enforcement tactics. As of Monday, according to a declaration from the IRS Chief Privacy Officer, Kathleen Evie Walters, neither DHS nor ICE had yet requested information under the new agreement. But with tax day just around the corner, the policy's impact on tax compliance among immigrant communities remains to be seen. In a bombshell Senate hearing Wednesday, former Meta executive Sarah Wynne Williams delivered scathing testimony, alleging that the social media giant has been working hand in glove with the Chinese government to censor content on its platforms, raising serious national security concerns. Wynne Williams, who served as Director of Global Public Policy at Meta, then Facebook, from 2011 to 2018, told the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on Crime and Counterterrorism that she witnessed the company provide custom-built censorship tools for the Chinese Communist Party during her tenure. I saw Meta executives repeatedly undermine U.S. national security and betray American values, Wynne Williams stated in her opening remarks. She detailed how Meta implemented what she called a virality counter that flagged posts with over 10,000 views for review by a chief editor. A system Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal described as an Orwellian censor. According to her testimony, these censorship tools were deployed not only in mainland China but also in Hong Kong and Taiwan. Perhaps most concerning for American users, Wynne Williams testified that Chinese officials could potentially access the data of U.S. users. When Meta engineers expressed concerns about data security, she claimed that leadership, including CEO Mark Zuckerberg, remained indifferent. The whistleblower painted a picture of Zuckerberg as personally invested in Meta's business relationship with China, even committing to learning Mandarin and scheduling weekly Mandarin sessions with employees. She also alleged Meta's AI model called Llama was used to help DeepSeek, a Chinese AI company that has recently shown capabilities rivaling ChatGPT at a fraction of the cost. The greatest trick Mark Zuckerberg ever pulled was wrapping the American flag around himself and calling himself a patriot and saying he didn't offer services in China while he spent the last decade building an $18 billion business there, Wynne Williams told senators. Republican Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri didn't mince words, saying Zuckerberg made censorship his business model, and that the evidence showed a company and leadership that is willing to do anything, work with America's chief competitor, work with our chief adversary. Meta immediately pushed back, calling Wynne Williams' testimony divorced from reality and riddled with false claims. A company spokesperson emphasized, while Mark Zuckerberg himself was public about our interest in offering our services in China, the fact is this: we do not operate our services in China today. The allegations come at a particularly sensitive time as Washington takes an increasingly aggressive stance toward China. Just yesterday, the Trump administration increased tariffs on Chinese goods to 125% and continues to pursue the sale of TikTok to an American buyer over similar national security concerns. 6 months after implementing sweeping morality laws in Afghanistan, Taliban authorities are now actively detaining men for having the wrong hairstyles and even arresting barbers who provide these supposedly non-compliant cuts and trims, according to a disturbing new UN report released Thursday. The report details how the Taliban's notorious vice and virtue ministry has employed over 3,300 mostly male inspectors who are arbitrarily detaining citizens without due process and legal protections. The morality police aren't just focused on appearances, they're also monitoring mosque attendance, particularly during the recent holy month of Ramadan, detaining men who miss mandatory congregational prayers. These draconian enforcement actions are having devastating economic consequences across Afghan society. Small business owners, including private education centers, barbers, hairdressers, tailors, wedding caterers, and restaurants, have experienced severe reductions or complete loss of income and employment opportunities. The UN mission warns these socioeconomic effects will likely compound Afghanistan's already dire economic situation. A World Bank study cited in the report estimates that the Taliban's ban on women from education and work could cost the country more than $1.4 billion annually, a staggering figure for a nation already suffering from extreme poverty and isolation from the global economy. Despite international condemnation, Taliban leader Hibatullah Akhundzada has doubled down on these policies. In a recent message issued for the Eid al-Fitr festival marking the end of Ramadan, Akhundzada emphasized the necessity to establish a society free from corruption and trials and to prevent future generations from becoming victims of misguided beliefs, harmful practices, and bad morals. The Vice and Virtue Ministry, through spokesman Saif-ur-Rahman Khyber, defended their actions, claiming they've resolved thousands of complaints and protected Afghan women's rights, in addition to implementing divine decrees and eliminating bad customs. Khyber rejected any criticism as attempts to sabotage or spread rumors about the ministry's activities. These morality laws, which took effect last August, regulate numerous aspects of everyday Afghan life, including public transport, music, shaving, celebrations, and most notably, a ban on women's voices and faces in public. A top UN official warned at the time that these laws provided a distressing vision for Afghanistan's future by adding to already severe restrictions on women and girls. The New York Post reports that these regulations represent just the latest chapter in the Taliban's ongoing effort to reshape Afghan society according to their strict interpretation of Islamic law, regardless of the humanitarian cost. Coming up, a legend in sports challenges the Democrats to re-examine the hills they are willing to die on. Stay with us, and please hit that follow and like button to help us out while we take a quick break.
Is your home's landscaping, exterior style, or outdoor space ready for a transformation? Whether you're lakeside or curbside, make the most of your property with Garden and Grow Design, your premier digital landscape designers. At Garden and Grow Design, we specialise in increasing the value and beauty of your home by crafting elegant outdoor living spaces. Our experienced and creative designers use cutting-edge 3D technology to blend seasonal colours, perennial blooms and stylish hardscapes into your ideal garden. And the best part? It's all designed for minimal maintenance. Don't just imagine your perfect yard. See it first with our innovative digital designs. Whether it's a serene waterfront retreat or a chic patio for entertaining, we bring your outdoor dreams to life. Ready to grow? Visit www.gardenandgrowdesign.com to start your journey toward a breathtaking landscape today. Garden and Grow Design, cultivate beauty, cultivate life.
Tennis legend Martina Navratilova is making waves again, but this time it's not on the court. It's in the political arena. The 18-time Grand Slam champion has publicly challenged Democratic lawmakers over their stance on transgender athletes in women's sports, asking a pointed question on social media that's igniting debate across the country. What are the Dems willing to give up for men who identify as trans? Navratilova posted on X. Abortion, the Constitution, rule of law, that's just for starters. Her comments come as several states continue to resist implementing President Trump's February executive order designed to keep males out of girls' and women's sports. High school athletic organizations in Maine, California, and Washington have all maintained policies allowing transgender athletes to participate in female competitions, directly contradicting the federal directive. This isn't the first time Navratilova has criticized Democrats on this issue. Earlier this year, she lambasted Democratic lawmakers for killing the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, urging them to grow a spine on the matter. After Trump signed his executive order, she expressed frustration that Democrats had failed to take similar action. I hate that the Democrats totally failed women and girls on this very clear issue of women's sports being for females only, she wrote on X. Meanwhile, prominent Democratic representatives like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Jasmine Crockett have downplayed concerns about transgender athletes in women's sports. Ocasio-Cortez has characterized the issue as a distraction and culture war, even claiming that legislation like the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act would empower child sexual predators. Crockett similarly dismissed the topic in an interview with the 19th, saying, "Find the little trans child that is ruining your life. I mean, I'm just like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing?" The controversy has gained additional visibility through incidents like female fencer Stephanie Turner taking a knee in protest of a transgender opponent during a tournament, an act that gained widespread attention when she appeared on Fox News to discuss her demonstration. The debate represents a significant political divide, with polls showing the issue resonates with many voters. Despite Trump soundly defeating Kamala Harris in the general election after campaigning on this topic, Democratic lawmakers remain split on how to address the growing concerns of women athletes and their families. Fox News reports that as the battle continues between federal directives and state-level resistance, Navratilova remains one of the most outspoken advocates for keeping women's sports exclusively for biological females, a position that continues to put her at odds with many in the Democratic Party. President Trump is turning on the pressure, water pressure, that is. The commander-in-chief signed an executive order Wednesday targeting water flow regulations implemented during the Obama administration and later reinstated by Biden after Trump had relaxed them during his first term. Overregulation chokes the American economy and stifles personal freedom. A small but meaningful example is the Obama-Biden war on showers, Trump wrote in the executive order, taking aim at what he called multi-thousand-word regulations defining the word showerhead. The order specifically directs Energy Secretary Chris Wright to immediately rescind the overly complicated federal rule on showerheads, returning water flow standards to the 2.5 gallons per minute rule that had been in place since 1992. Trump didn't mince words about his personal motivation behind the change. In my case, I like to take a nice shower, take care of my beautiful hair, he explained while signing the order. I have to stand in the shower for 15 minutes until it gets wet. Comes out drip, drip, drip. It's ridiculous. The White House statement framed the action as restoring sanity to federal regulations, declaring that no longer will showerheads be weak and worthless. Officials argued that the Obama-Biden regulations served a radical green agenda that made life worse for everyday Americans and even made some multi-nozzle showers illegal. The executive order doesn't stop at showerheads. It applies to sinks and dishwashers as well. The White House statement emphasized consumer choice, stating, Americans pay for their own water and should be free to choose their showerheads without federal meddling. Critics see this as another example of the administration rolling back environmental protections, while supporters view it as removing unnecessary government intrusion into everyday life. Either way, with the catchphrase, "Make America's showers great again," Trump has managed to turn water pressure into a political statement. The New York Post reports this represents one of several regulatory rollbacks the administration has undertaken since returning to office, with the White House concluding that Trump is slashing red tape and ending Biden's dumb war on things that work. And that's a wrap on today's Ranting Politics Headline Updates Special Edition Super Show. What a news cycle we've had. From Ukrainian forces capturing Chinese nationals fighting for Russia to Trump's market moving social posts and plenty of political drama sandwiched in between. We've covered global tensions with North Korea doubling down on their nuclear program, Meta allegedly working hand in glove with the Chinese government, and the Taliban's morality police cracking down on everything from hairstyles to mosque attendance. On the domestic front, we've seen the House narrowly pass Trump's budget blueprint, Chuck Todd admitting media bias and covering Biden's decline, leadership shakeups at the ATF, and the IRS sharing taxpayer data with immigration authorities. Whether it's Martina Navratilova challenging Democrats on transgender athletes in sports or Trump making America's showers great again, we've given you the straight talk on stories that matter. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow us across all platforms. Find us on X at RantingRP. Subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to visit our website at rantingpolitics.com for more policy articles and sign up for our newsletter. Remember, we don't align with a political party. We align with you, the American citizen. This is JOC signing off, and thank you, our loyal listeners, for choosing Ranting Politics Headline Updates. We'll be back soon with the updates you need to navigate these interesting times. Until then, stay tuned, stay informed, and as always, stay free.